I'm really pleased to welcome Ghazala and Yvonne here from Network 7. What's Network 7 all about?
Network 7 is about social justice and intercultural education.
Social justice and intercultural education. Before we started this interview, you were explaining to me this network's been going from 1996, I think. That's 14 years. What's the main ideas behind your network?
I suppose what got it started in the first place was to initiate a dialogue between different researchers in different countries who were looking at social justice, however they saw social justice, and how they saw communication between different communities of difference. Different researchers were looking at urban settings or rural settings where social justice and intercultural education might or might not have been happening. So it's an open-ended, exciting area which has caused a lot of interest over the years.
So you're talking about social justice in education, I suppose, and that has a particular meaning. What does social justice mean in education?
That's a difficult question because you can give a lot of answers to it. But social justice is about educational outcomes and the way education is organized and give the opportunities for all kinds of people to have the highest outcomes. It's
it's opportunities for everyone to have those opportunities for learning.
That's well, but there's something else, and it's also about cultural justice, and that meets intercultural education.
Okay, explain the idea of intercultural education to me. I mean, I've heard these terms, I've read some bits about it, but it's not the area I come from. Try and explain to me what's the key ideas behind intercultural education.
It's about communication and about respect. It is about diversity. It is about learning to live with differences. It's against injustice, against ways of educating young people, which works against their life opportunities. So in a sense, it is really about opening new dialogues of communication for a more just outcome.
So that's more opening those dialogues among students and learners, yes?
And teachers.
And teachers. And then you are researchers looking at it from another side. I'm trying to see the embedded layers in this, which is quite complex, yes?
Because you said, as researchers, you look into it, and we look into intercultural education, for example, from different perspectives. And you can emphasize diversity, but it is also important to think about the civic function of education in a pluralistic society. So it's about education, and what is education for, and what does education mean for different groups of people and for individuals. So,
and also what is taken for granted in one country might not be taken for granted in another. So the terms of engagement are themselves open to discourse and analysis. And that is what makes it exciting.
And that's what makes it exciting for a European conference.
Yes, yes.
And I think that I remember 14 years ago, when we started this network, we said to each other, there's so much difference between European countries, thinking of intercultural education, social justice questions. So, and when we look today to our conference, still there is so much discussion on the concepts. We have so much discussion on differences and commonalities.
I'm quite interested on that commonalities line. Would you say that there's an emerging commonalities around approaches to intercultural education at a European level? Is that happening? Or are there just as many differences as there are with areas outside Europe, I suppose.
I think the differences are a part of the journey, if you like. So, for example, what is happening in Portugal is not exactly what is happening in Finland. It can't. Because people have different historical contexts, they have different policy initiatives that are happening in individual states, if you like.
Yeah.
But the factors, for example, transmigration of ideas, migrations of people, certain groups which are not being educated, although they're living in democracies, those kind of issues are global issues and they're reflected in Europe as well. But each country is different in some ways. And yet we're common. In that we're looking at the cinema through the lens of seeking to find a better outcome.
What's then, well, there's two things I suppose. What's changed? You've got this debate going on, this discourse, and you know within a conference I've been going to, ECR conferences, I guess, for as long as you have. How does, I'm part of that network, and I just sort of trace back, well yes, 10 years ago we were talking about that, we might still be talking about that, but we have different overly concerns, it's foregrounding, backgrounding almost, of some of these issues. What's changed in your network over those periods? How has the debate, the general discourse of the network changed?
I can't give you a total overview, but one of the things that comes into my mind is that when we started the network, we had a lot of information about what children experienced, what parents experienced in countries. And now we have much more research into intersections of different inequalities, but also much more research into the thinking of teachers, the experience of teachers, the influence of the curriculum, the influence of the political context. So we have more information about the special, peculiar things happening inside classrooms, inside schools, in different settings. So we have more informed context information. And I think that is the growth over the years.
And an increased awareness that this is an issue which you're addressing, so you're not so much having to campaign for it to be an issue to recognise.
Yeah, and we have more critical questions to ask to each other. For example, somebody can tell, oh, we have a curriculum on intercultural education and it's connected to citizenship education. And then when you hear the discussions in our network today, for example, then people ask, hey, but can you please go into a bit more into the social political questions that are behind it? Or can you go into the relationship with the tendency to standardization? And there are questions that are more philosophical, but more sociological, psychological. So we have this.
It is interdisciplinary.
Well, that's what I was just going to say.
It's got to survive so long and to keep the interest of the people.
Where do most of the people who come to your network, where do they come from? Are they psychologists? Are they educationalists? Or?
But mostly from education.
Yeah.
And from across the globe. We've had, over the years, presentations from India as well, once from Sri Lanka, from Turkey, once from the Middle East. This year we have delegates from America and Canada who are sitting in on session on the papers that are being presented. So it is, because it captures the developmental ideas and ideals that people are seeking to keep in their.
So the discourses are wider than internal European discourse. They're a discourse which is running inwards and outwards. What would you say is the big issues at this year's conference? What are the things that's getting people buzzing for your network?
For me, it's teacher identity.
Teacher identity.
and teacher professionalism. But that's perhaps influenced by the sessions I was chairing today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For me, so far, it's been children's identities and children's aspirations and citizenship and how the two don't coincide. And that is interesting.
That is interesting, yes, you got me thinking there. So because we have the rise of this citizenship idea, don't we, across Europe?
Yeah.
But how that affects people's identities, or whether it does, or whether it's a sort of cynical move.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, and what is important too, that comes to my mind, that after there is a tendency in citizenship education that is a bit disciplinary. No, and that what is important, and that I think is in this year's conference important, to discuss the goals of education in relation to, for example, citizenship education,
yes,
or the core curriculum.
And that raises questions of control with education,
Yeah,
because
exactly.
right away, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Whether it should be teachers' jobs to be delivering what many would see is an overtly political agenda around citizenship.
And just under that, this question of funding. What is being funded to be researched and what is not?
Which is always an issue.
But in our network, we've had funded and non-funded research. And that's interesting too. Because the dialogue from different perspectives gets people thinking about their own topic in a new way. So you asked about innovative ideas.
Yes, yeah.
It's an emerging field. Although we've been doing it for 40
years. I was going to say, how long are you going to stay emergent for?
Till as long as there is interest.
So you think you'll still be going in another 14 years?
No, I don't think so.
I think so.
Because I think it's interesting to have the young people coming up.
But there are young people coming.
The network will continue, of
Yeah.
course, with different conveners perhaps. But we've had the same conveners working together closely for a long time. And the four of us have our conversations with each other, our differences and our similarities feed into the papers that we tend to select.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much for coming and explaining some of that. And if people want to find out more about the network, where can they go?
Just to the ECER network.
Yeah.
To the
ECER network's page, and you've got your own section on there.
We published a book based on 2 years conferences, one in Crete and one in Dublin. We might in the future write another editor-similar book from select papers from future conferences, or this one perhaps.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much.